Happy Halloween, everybody. Welcome to another episode, a very special episode of WRPL. I don't know what I'm calling this. List of things, top 10. I don't know what it is, but
if we had a Patreon, this would be what would be on it.
Yes, but oh my god, that's work. And I don't think the 12 people who follow us give a shit about giving us money, so we're just going to have to keep doing this for free. Well,
but it's not work if you love it.
I guess. So this is going to be Ben's top 10 list of favorite vampire movies. I didn't love vampires as a kid, and it kind of solidified with like Twilight of just, this is not what I like for my vampire movies. I don't love the super aristocratic Interview with a Vampire type vampires. I like humans trying to be normal or crazy monster men.
Okay.
All right. What's your relationship with vampire movies, Steve?
Not strong.
Yeah, I know you're not a big horror guy, but vampires seem to transcend the horror genre.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate them as a creature. I like that, unlike most horror monsters, there are many different types, different versions of vampires, whereas like, you know, werewolves, you're kind of just either a wolf or a man-wolf. There certainly vampire movies I do like, but I can't say that I've seen so many that I could like make a definitive list of like great vampire films.
Yeah, you're right. They're a really unique monster where you take a wolf man, you take a zombie, and you're pretty much the same rules every single time. Silver bullets, cut off their head, whatever, destroy the brain. But vampires, you get so many different things. And I've said before, it's either religious, supernatural, or scientific. And you could kind of pick and choose. And like, well, I want my vampires to transform into bats and into fog and be afraid of crosses. Or, you know, the sunlight does work and silver works, but maybe garlic doesn't work. And you could kind of do whatever you want to fit your narrative. And also, you don't have a creature that has like so many powers and so many weaknesses, like hypnotism, flight, eternal life. And then on the flip side, sunlight, garlic, silver, crosses, holy water, rules about can they walk into your house without being invited, just like so many different things. And you would think that would kind of hurt, like if Jason was, you know, susceptible to psychics and water and hopes and dreams. You know, it's like if it had a huge list of things that would definitely take him out, it'd be like, there's too many rules for this. But vampires seem to get away with it for some reason.
And vampires, I think, are one of possibly the only monster that can really be made sexy.
Yeah, I mean, they tried with like the warm bodies.
Yeah, I mean, like that's different because it's just a classic horror movie trope is like teens that like so many horror movies are like, well, we need to have sex in this, but obviously they're not gonna like have sex with a killer or whatever. But vampires are the one, you know, it's like, no, this vampire fucks. Like they made a whole series on HBO about vampires just fucking a bunch of people.
Yeah, and that's part of like their allure of, well, yes, I'm a monster and you'll have to feed on blood, but the things you can do and live forever. And it's like, it is very alluring to go, yeah, maybe I'll see all my family die, but I get to do all these crazy things.
Or even if it's not about like becoming one of them, it's just like, I just like a bad boy. And like, so what if he bites?
So I'm going to do 10 to 1, my favorite vampire movies. I'll touch on them briefly. I don't expect this to be very long. I have some runner-ups and things that I think may be on a list because I've heard that they were so good, but they're not available on any sort of streaming services for free right now. So they're in their own they're in their own separate category. So let's start at number 10, Braum Stoker's Dracula.
This is one I've seen recently.
Yes.
Based on your recommendations.
This is a fantastic movie, not just because it's a vampire movie, but as a special effects movie, it's very admirable of the things they do. I think there's only one digital shot in the entire thing, and that's the blue fire that they drive through. Everything else, like, there's a scene where they're in a train and she's reading a letter and eyes appear over the hill behind outside the window, and then text is scrolling across, and that's all done in camera with miniatures and forced perspective and backlit things and matte paintings. It is just so incredibly beautiful to look at. The costume design, Gary Oldman's Dracula is one of the best versions of Dracula. He has so many different forms. He has that sexy aristocrat, and then the haggard old beast, and then the actual bat-like monster, and his
and the werewolf version of himself.
Werewolf version as well. And that armor, his best to describe
muscle
it is
armor.
His Lord Zed looking muscle armor is so damn cool. This movie does have some flaws when it comes to Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. They're not the strongest actors in this, and they don't do their accents very well. And one I could blame and one I can't blame. I can blame Winona Ryder because she actually helped get this movie off the ground. The script came to her, and she wanted to work with the director
Francis Ford
Coppola for another movie, but she wasn't able to do it. And then when they started talking again, she gave him this script, and so if it wasn't for her, maybe this movie wouldn't have been made. But she doesn't quite sell the accent. And Keanu Reeves had come off like 3 big major hits. He was a studio darling, and they forced him in this. Coppola actually wanted Johnny Depp, and I think Johnny Depp would have killed this role, especially at that time. Now, nobody cares about Johnny Depp, but he... And the studio actually said, we don't want Johnny Depp, we want someone hot right now. And it's like, who was fucking hotter than Johnny Depp? He was just like knocking it out of the park, beautiful man, and they wanted Keanu Reeves instead. I don't know. I don't get it.
And I also read, after I watched the movie, I did some IMDb trivia, and Francis Ford Coppola came out and said, like, I feel bad for Keanu because he really tried so hard with that accent. Like, he tried so hard. I told him to, like, pull it back some. I think he just wanted to do such a good job. It actually was a detriment to him, which is like kind of a bummer.
But I think he's doing okay.
He's doing okay now.
He's fine.
He's like got a second peak of a career right now.
All right, number 9.
Well, sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, as someone who saw this movie recently, and it's probably one of the few I can talk about, I agree with a lot of things you said. I think the creature designs are very cool. I think visually it holds up pretty well even today for the most part. And I will say that I think of all the vampire movies I've seen, or at least attempts at, it's very hard to do sexy in horror. I gotta say, Bram Stoker's Dracula, pretty fucking sexy.
Yeah.
Like, I think, yeah, you might say that Winona Ryder isn't the best actress in this, but I mean, Gary Oldman is like going for it in every scene. Like, he's definitely like, I don't want to say hamming it up, but like hamming it up in the best way.
Yeah.
And I think this whole movie like is very sexy versus a movie that is sexual. I think this, and it's not like overly like graphic. I mean, there is nudity throughout the movie, but I wouldn't say it's like over the top by any means. It's just like the right amount to where you're just like, I kind of get why she's into it, even though you're seeing some like horrible monsters. But I just think the passion really works there, especially from, I think Oldman really sells it.
And you have that scene of Keanu Reeves is in bed and his succubus concubines come and seduce him, and they're all over him, and then they scurry up the wall and stuff. It's like very hot.
It blends sexy and horror really well, and so many other horror movies try and just fail. I
think of all my things on here, there's maybe one that has a little bit of sex appeal to it, and I'll get to it, but this is definitely the sexiest movie on my list. All right, number 9, one I know you haven't seen. It's called Afflicted. It's a found footage movie, relatively new, and it's a story of 2 friends who One has a AVM. He has a brain issue, and he knows he's gonna die soon. So he wants to do his bucket list of traveling Europe with his buddy, and they're gonna film all of it as one last hurrah. They meet a woman at a club or something, and he takes her back to their hotel, and she's a vampire, and she bites him. And so it's them kind of documenting like the changes he's going through and how he needs blood, and so they're giving him like pigs or chickens or cats or something like that, and he's trying to drink from it, but it's making him throw up. It's like, you have to have human blood, and how he's, going out in the sun, it hurts. And after he goes on a bender, and he gets his friend bit and killed, and now he's like trying to find the woman who bit him. It's a pretty interesting little found footage movie. Well done. If you like found footage, it was different, and I really appreciate it.
I bet there's not many lists with Afflicted above Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I mean, I put Bram Stoker's pretty low just because it is a classic Dracula story. Okay. It's not breaking new ground when it comes to story, but it did break ground in filmmaking.
Fair enough.
Number 8, the only other one that could be considered sexy was The Lost Boys.
I have seen The Lost Boys, but I have not seen it since I was, 15 or 16, so I remember nothing from this movie.
Well, there is like a shirtless but leather-clad saxophone player, and it is pretty sexy. So this is just a story of, a family moving to a new town, fish out of water, meeting the cool kids of the town, or the bad kids, and they turn out to be vampires, and they turn him, and there's a power struggle and a love of a woman, and Corey Haim and Corey Feldman get to do like a little Home Alone home invasion thing where they set all these booby traps for the vampires to come in. It's really fun, it's of its time, and Kiefer Sutherland just kills it.
That's one movie I wouldn't mind going back and watching again,
for sure,
because I really don't remember much from it, but I know it is, one of those 80s classic movies.
It really is. And directed by Joel Schumacher, and he's not very good at movies, so that's kind of surprising.
Fun.
All right, number 7, something I did talk about in one of our early episodes, but Blood Red Sky.
Vampires on a plane.
Die Hard vampires on a plane. Go back to our episode, whatever number that would be. I'm not looking it up, and I'll get more into it, but pretty much, woman on a plane, is a vampire, gets put into a bad hostage situation, has to succumb to her vampire tendencies to save the day and save her son. Good stuff. It's on Netflix. It's awesome. You really should go in without knowing anything about it, but I kind of ruined that, so...
Spoilers as always.
Always spoilers. All right, number 6, Blade. This is one of the more action-y that's on my list. I got a couple other ones, but Blade kind of set a standard for vampires. I never saw vampires burst into flame when they got stabbed in the heart, and that effect blew my mind, and it still looks really good. And so many vampire movies today do that turning into ash thing, I think, because of Blade. And you get the classic character by Wesley Snipes. You have Deacon Frost, played by, what's his name?
Stephen Dorff.
Stephen Dorff. You have Stephen Dorff as this, young vampire who has kind of an ego and thinks, well, we're top of the food chain, we should be running the show. And all the elder vampires are like, look, kid, you don't get it. And it's his power struggle to, kind of take over. But someone's in the way. Blade. Half vampire, half human. All their strengths, none of their weaknesses. In a black leather jacket before the Matrix. Really, really set the standard. And I like Blade 2 a lot. You get Ron Perlman, and if he wasn't in that role, he wouldn't have gotten Hellboy, because that's where I met Guillermo del Toro. You get a nice evolution of the vampires. And I even like Blade 3. It's not great, but it's fine.
I love Blade 3.
Blade 3 has a lot of fun stuff. I mean, that movie is made by Ryan Reynolds, but I don't think that's going to hold up well now, seeing how he does this and everything. Going back, it's just Ryan Reynolds. But at the time...
was that a performance?
Yes.
I mean, scenes, like the whole movie is just him just stealing scenes.
Yes. And then on the flip, you have Parker Posey as like the head vampire with, Triple H. And I think Triple H does a fine job.
Yeah.
And I like that he has a little like monster Pomeranian.
Yeah.
But Parker Posey is like born to play a bitchy vampire. She is so good. And if you don't know much about Parker Posey, I mean, she's in tons of mockumentaries and stuff by Christopher Guest.
Christopher Guest, yes.
Yeah, she's in a lot of Christopher Guest movies, and she was in Scream 3. But if you can see Josie and the Pussycats, I hated that movie for so many years. My buddy forced me to watch it so much because he was in love with Rachel Lee Cook, and I did not get it. But it finally clicked, and it is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And Parker Posey and Alan Cumming, they're both just so good in that. So I recommend for my number 6, Blade. But also, if you're going to watch other movies, watch Parker Posey in pretty much anything she does.
Especially
Josie
and
the
the Pussycats.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the exact line, but I also love the line with Ryan Reynolds where they're asking him about, like, what's this new weapon Blade has? And he's just like, it's a deep, rich chocolate with a caramel crunch or something. And he's just like, do you remember?
I don't remember that at all.
I'm not doing it justice.
Yeah.
Never mind.
My favorite line from Blade is Blade's talking to Whistler about like the new tech, and he's just like, "Oh, this is a little heavy," and Whistler goes, "But you're so big," and it's just the way he delivers that line is fabulous. All right, number 5. This is 2 movies because it's the original and the remake, and I think they are both equally as good. A lot of people will disagree, but I think they each bring their own flavor to it. But it's Let the Right Ones In and Let Me In. Mm-hmm. I saw this on a whim. I just kind of heard like, this is a crazy vampire story, and I love stories of young vampires who are trapped in this body, but they're hundreds of years old, and how she but she like befriends this kid to become her caretaker for years, and now he's an old man and he's still out killing people to get blood for her, and he just can't do it anymore, and now she makes a new friend, and maybe that's the responsibility he will have to do. You don't see it a lot in vampire movies, but they do the I can't come in unless you invite me in. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I don't care, come in. And it's like, I want you to come in on your own. I'm not going to invite you. And we get to kind of see the ramifications, and she starts like bleeding from her eyes, and her body can't take it until he says like, you can come in. Then it stops. And you just don't see that in movies. You see how holy water works or a cross or something, mm-hmm. but never that they can physically make themselves do it, but it will hurt them. And I thought that was very creative.
Yeah, I never saw the original, but I saw the remake, and I really liked, because, I mean, it's a Matt Reeves movie, and he's one of my favorite working directors right now, making a new Batman film. Mm-hmm. But the thing I really liked about it is it gave his bully a character, mm-hmm. and I just really, like, the scene that always, it's weird, like, I only saw that movie once, and the scene I remember the most is he has your main character has this bully character who's like picking on him and stuff, and then you see a scene where his older brother is the one who picks on him. Mm-hmm. So it's this line of like, my older brother picks on me and I feel weak, so I'm gonna pick on you, so I feel strong. And it's just one scene, and it just told all the story you need to tell about that character and gave him purpose, as opposed to, because like we always see bully characters and then it's like they're a dick for no reason, mm-hmm. and you don't really get why, because it's like, well, it's not important why he's the bully, it's not his story. But like, I really love that stuff. It's like you're doing just one small little 30-second scene, but it adds so much character to your character. Yeah. And that's a moment I really love from that film. I was like, this is good stuff.
Yeah. All right, number 4, 30 Days of Night.
Oh, love this one. This might be my number 1 vampire movie.
I would not blame you for it. This one stuck with me because it was the extremely feral but smart vampires. Mm-hmm. There's parts of the story that don't make a whole lot of sense, like they're hiding in an attic and it cuts forward like 15 days, and it's like, really? You've just been hanging out in this attic? They're going through house to house tearing things up, and they haven't found all these people? I don't buy that. But the scene, well, I guess for those who don't know, it's an Alaskan town. A ship comes in, and it's filled with vampires, and they're gonna like hang out in this town because for 30 days it's gonna be nighttime and they get to run amok. So Josh Hartnett has to save the town with a meat grinder, fluorescent bulbs or neon UV bulbs, and some vampire blood. But the best scene of this movie is when the friend goes into the meat grinder. It is disgusting. Like, he gets an axe to the neck, and you know it's a prosthetic, but they molded it with such the right expression that it looks like you're seeing a guy get his head cut off by an axe and then go into a meat grinder. It is disgusting, but it is so amazing, and it has really stuck with me. And the lead vampire is perfect for this. He just... what's his name, man? Second William Stryker from X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yeah. That guy. Just those dark black eyes and the sharp teeth. They're all like and just sharks. Like,
yeah, and I feel like a lot of them do just like the subtle like little like head tilt kind of thing, and it's just like they almost seem like zombies, but it's all just pure like thirst, which I guess zombies have, but it's just how expressive they are with so little sometimes. My favorite scene, probably the most memorable scene in the movie, is the like overhead massacre shot of the town where, you know, red on white is obviously very striking, but then you're just seeing, you know, this pan over shot of the town where the vampires are just like slaying all the people and just red across the white snow, and just it's a very beautiful and horrifying shot, and just, you know, this mass chaos and everyone just trying to survive, and it's just like, well, there's nowhere to run because you can't survive out in the cold, and there's, you know, nowhere you try to wait it out, but it's like you're gonna be stuck there for 30 days. It's just it's very clever, self-contained story. It's real cool. Great action beats.
Did you ever see 30 Days of Night 2?
I didn't even know there was a 2.
There is. I don't remember much of anything, but I don't remember hating it, but it's nowhere near as interesting. All right, number 3. This movie is one of the movies I've seen more than anything else. There was a day that me and a friend, we just put it on, and I think we were cleaning, and it was like, we just need something in the background, and once it was done, we started it back up, and because we'd go in and out, and just all day, it just played over and over and over again. This movie is From Dusk Till Dawn. Some people don't even call it a vampire movie, but it's a vampire movie.
It's a vampire movie.
They're definitely more demonic, and it's a different breed. You know, it's in Mexico, an ancient Aztec bar on top of an Aztec pyramid. So I like that these are truly monstrous vampires. Probably the most monstrous of all the ones on here. Blood Red Sky gets pretty close, but these ones, I mean, there's one where the chick has a stomach in her belly, and like the nipples of her boobs are like the eyes, and so when she's walking, it's the mouth's opening. Like, vampires don't have stomachs on their mouths, but it doesn't matter. They're all crazy, goopy things that just like burst into flames. This is one of George Clooney's like breakout roles after he got on ER.
George Clooney is cool as fuck.
He is so cool, and he's got that dumbass tribal tattoo all the way up his neck.
Yeah, which like looks terrible on every human but him. George Clooney. It's like, there's a reason he's considered like one of the most handsome men on the planet. And he got
ridiculed for this movie because it's like he had such a good run on ER, this nice doctor, and then like, oh, he just makes this trash. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, who has such a weird filmography, and co-written.
One of the weirdest.
Yeah. Just like extreme gore and then children's films. It's bizarre. If you like, I would say watch this and then double feature with Shorts. Shorts is his less like popular kids movie, but that movie is weird. And it has a character named Helvetica Black, and it's like, that's a cool name.
That is a cool name. That seems like a name that would have been in Sin City.
Yeah, or The Spirit, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sans Serif and Helvetica Black. That would have been a cool partner. Yeah. So From Dusk Till Dawn, I saw it as like a 13-year-old kid. It was pouring rain. My mom didn't want to drive us to the theater, but it was supposed to rain like all day, and she thought, well, you know, my friend his mom was going to pick us up, so she got the better end of the deal. So she agreed. I didn't tell her what movie I was seeing, and I don't even know how we got tickets because it is rated R, but we went in, and it was just like eye-opening because the first 20 minutes, I knew it was a vampire movie going in, but a lot of people didn't, and it starts off with like a bank heist and a kidnapping, and it's like, oh, who are these two criminals? What are they going to do? And then you're 30 minutes in, and all of a sudden someone's getting ripped apart by a vampire, and like, whoa, it takes a total shift. And I guess if you didn't know that going in, it may seem a little weird. I knew it because I'm a movie dork and I look these things up.
Yeah.
But there's like no sympathy for characters. Like this young boy dies, the girl's dad dies, and then you have Tom Savini as Sex Machine with a frickin' revolver penis and a whip. It's so cool. Oh, and then he creates a stake gun, but it's more like a stake jackhammer. So it just has that big post in it, and he just like go into all of them. So you got monstrous, different types of vampires. They were easy to kill, and they burst into goo and flames. And you had a really unique setting with really fun characters, and probably the sexiest Salma Hayek we have ever seen.
Jesus Christ.
And I hate snakes, but I'm perfectly fine with this scene. She is so beautiful.
She almost doesn't look real.
Yeah.
Humans aren't made like that.
And she's maintained it. It's like, sure, obviously she's older now, but she's still so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, what's her name? It's like Demonica Santiago or something like that. Anywho,
I mean, yeah, it's weird that it's a movie filled with... It's got George Clooney in it, and... Quentin Tarantino. Oh,
Harvey Keitel.
It's got, like, these really interesting actors in it, and it's got really interesting, crazy scenes of kooky characters and kooky weapons and crazy-looking vampires that are, like, bursting into flames. But the most memorable scene in that movie is Salma Hayek's dance. And you can't fault it for it because no human has ever looked better.
Absolutely. And like, I'm not a feet guy as well, but I would totally drink the beer off of her foot shoved into my mouth.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask for it, but if she's putting it there, I'm not going to say no.
Yep. Love this movie. Fantastic.
A lot of fun.
Have you seen From Dusk Till Dawn 2, The Hangman's Daughter, or From Dusk Till Dawn 3? It probably also has a subtitle.
Or From Dusk Till Dawn, the series. I've not seen anything else.
Yeah, I watched 2 and 3. Don't remember much. They're real cheap.
Yeah.
I watched the series, and man, talk about like taking an idea and dragging it out. I think I got through season 1, and then I just kind of gave up on it. And it's a Spanish language show, and I didn't want to read subtitles for the whole thing. So,
right.
Yeah, because I'm a douche. All right. Number 2, second greatest vampire movie of all time is What We Do in the Shadows. A comedy.
I see more on this list than I thought I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I was scouring for a list of things, and a lot of them, it's like, I never saw that. That's old. Oh, this is modern. This is stupid. And it turns out, like... There's not as many great vampire movies in my mind than I thought there would be, but oh well. What We Do in the Shadows is a story of 4 vampires living in New Zealand as housemates, just trying to survive, trying to get into clubs, trying to get that virgin blood and stuff, and then they bite, or the one in the basement bites a human, one of their victims, and he gets turned, and so they're kind of like introducing him to the vampire world and all the rules and things like that. Very, very funny. I mean, we all love Taika Waititi, we love all Jermaine Clement, and they just steal the show. Every line is hilarious. Every funny reference to past things is great. And the New Zealand accent is hilarious, even if they're just like reading the phone book. They're just funny because they exist.
Yeah, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but seeing that, like, they're all playing an archetype of a different style of vampire you've seen is a very smart way to sort of differentiate them as characters and make nods to old stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you have the Nosferatu,
Your Dracula,
your Twilight, your...
Vlad the Impaler type.
Yeah. All very, very great characters.
Absolutely. And the show is just so good. I Season 3 just ended. It's so good. It's so funny, and that's a show. Like in the movie, my favorite character is Taika Waititi's character.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like such a nice, likable vampire. But in the show, it's hard to pick. Like I have my number 1 is Nadia, but then who's number 2? It's like, oh well, it's this one. Well, but that means this person is 3 and this person's 4. There's no way that person's 4. Everybody else is just so good in it. It's hard to make a ranking, and it's very funny.
The 2 parts of What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, that I remember and love is I forget the actor's name, but he does all the New Zealand stuff. But the leader of the werewolves, and he's just like
Rhys Darby.
Yes, yeah, Rhys Darby, and I love the idea of being polite werewolves, and it's like, and they don't cuss, and they're like, we're werewolves, not swearwolves.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great line, and
I like when they're like, "Why don't you go sniff your own crotch?" We sniff each other's crotches. It's a greeting.
But when you Taika Waititi's character being a nice, polite vampire, his like laying down paper when he's like about to feed on the one girl, and then he like accidentally hits an artery, and just like the physical comedy of like this blood like shooting out of this like it should be a scene that's just like gruesome. Or like just seems like over the top, and I mean it is over the top, but it's played so well, and he's just like, he feels so bad that he's like murdering this girl, but you know, I don't know, it's just
failing at feeding at
the same time, and he's just like he like is very clean person, and now just blood is splattering everywhere. It's all really good stuff.
I like that he goes back to his like original love from like 60 years ago, and she's a little 80-year-old woman in a retirement home, and he bites her. It's just like it was something I was reading, like, if you're a vampire, when is it acceptable to start dating people? Because the older you get, you're going to date people that kind of look around your age. So say you're 18 and then 50 years go by and you're dating an 18-year-old for like appearances. You know, you don't want to date too old because that would look weird. You're an 18-year-old guy and you're dating, you know, a woman that's much older. So a lot of them date around their age. But when is that appropriate? Because it's pretty gross. Because you know you're a 60, 80-year-old man dating a young person. So when's the cutoff? Can you do it at any time? Because I had a feeling like if you want to date, once the people who are like in your age range that you grew up with, once they have died and their children have potentially died, then it's fair game. Because then you're not meeting with anybody's like their daughter, you know, oh, your best friend has grown up and now they have a kid and now you're dating their kid. That's gross. You're dating your friend's kid. It's like you got to let everybody die and everybody who they may have spawned get old enough, and then everything's fair game again. Because then you could just start fresh.
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. If vampires existed, then either they're just straight bloodthirsty monsters where like dating isn't really a thought to them, so it's just like it doesn't matter the age, we're just gonna drink you either way.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about draining to feed, I'm talking about like having an actual relationship.
Right. Or if you do the relationship thing, I think to them they're just, because they're immortal, like age really doesn't matter to them, so like they don't see you as an 18-year-old or a 60-year-old or whatever. I think it's just you're a living creature. I'm not. Time is forever for me, so your 100 years of life is a second of mine. Mm-hmm. So the difference between an 18-year-old and a 60-year-old means nothing. Okay. So I just think that that's how they would see it, or at least that's how they would justify in their own mind. Because I think they would maybe see an 18-year-old and be like, oh, I can't talk to this chick, she's 18, she's stupid as shit. But then at the same time it's like, what am I going to do with this 60-year-old? Like, we can't have fun together. So it's just you just don't think about it, and just maybe you keep a 60-year-old around to talk to, but then you bang your 18-year-old girl because she's dumb. I don't know.
Because it's like, if you're 45 and you're dating an 18-year-old. Okay, well, that's predatory behavior. There's no reason you need to be dating someone that young because you're not going to have things in common and stuff like that. But when
you're a vampire, you have nothing in common anyway.
Yeah, but see, that's why I think it's like if you give it enough time where it's like, oh, yes, these are the things we experience together. Now everybody who knows, anybody who could understand my references of anything has long been dead. It's a nice fresh start, and you can pretend to be who you want to be. I'm probably going to cut all this because it's a little gross. All right, my number one best vampire movie of all time. I know you know what I'm going to say.
I do.
But people who are listening at home, take a guess. Take a wild guess. What vampire movie did I not mention? You know, it's not Twilight. I mean, you know, it's
not the original Dracula.
It's not the original Dracula. Oh, what other?
Is it Underworld?
Probably not. I fucking hate the Underworld series.
Is it Queen of the Damned?
It is not. I don't like Interview with the Vampire or its sequel. I mean, Interview with the Vampire is a fine movie. I would put it on my runner-up here. It's fine for what it is. It's just not my type of vampire movie.
What about Blood Rain or I Am Legend?
I Am Legend is barely a vampire movie. The book is more of a vampire book. And Blood Rain, nah.
Is it The Vampire's Assistant?
Cirque du Freak? It is. John C. Reilly's Vampire is extraordinary casting. No, it's not Cirque du Freak.
I think most people would think it's Interview with a Vampire.
Yep, but they would be wrong. This movie you may not have even heard of. It's called Daybreakers. It has Willem Dafoe, it has Ethan Hawke, and Sam Neill. There are a couple others, but the main premise of this movie is the vampire plague got started real quick, and everybody started turning everybody, and then eventually they were the dominant species on the planet, and now they're coming to an issue of there's not enough humans to sustain this. We need to start capturing them and farming them because everybody's on blood rations, and if they don't come up with either a synthetic blood or a cure or something, they're going to be dead within a month. So the people in power, you know, everybody works at night, and there's like catwalks in between the skyscrapers so nobody has to go outside. And all the humans have gone underground to survive and to hunt them. And Ethan Hawke is a blood doctor, and he's trying to think of a synthetic cure, but it's like blowing up patients. Have you seen Daybreakers?
I have not.
You really should. I mean, obviously I say that because it's my number one, but it's really fun. So they do some fun things with this. Vampires start getting desperate for blood, so they start feeding on themselves, but it causes them to degrade and turn into more like bat-like Nosferatu type vampires. Okay. So it's like if you can keep fresh blood, you're going to look normal and cool, but you start feeding on your blood and just recycling that, you just turn into a monster. And a lot of people, his neighbor succumbed to that and like breaks into his house like searching for blood, and Ethan Hawke's brother is part of the military complex and is kind of a dickhead about all of it. So then Ethan Hawke gets captured by some human resistance, and he lets them know, hey, we're trying to cure vampires, so maybe I can help you. And he meets Willem Dafoe, and Willem Dafoe was a vampire, and now he's a human. And it's like, well, maybe we should work together and figure out what you did, and maybe we can find a cure. So the cure is sunlight. That, I think, is the most ingenious thing I've seen a vampire movie do, something new that I've never seen anywhere else, that the sunlight is actually like burning the disease out of you. It's just so strong, it's going to kill you at the same time. It's just like bleach kills AIDS, but if you put bleach in your veins, sure, the AIDS are going to die, but so are you. So what happened, he was fed up with, Willem Dafoe was fed up with his life, and he took his car and drove it down a pier and like launched himself out the windshield, and he landed in the ocean during the day. And he's laying under the water, and the sun is shining down on him. So it's burning everything out of him, but the water is keeping him wet, so he's not catching on fire and exploding. So they use that They do it a little bit different where he's like in a tube and they let the sun in and he like takes as much as he can. Then he puts like a fire blanket on to put out the fire and take as much as he can and put it out. And it works as well. And so they're both human. They go to Sam Neill, who's big evil guy. His daughter was human and part of the resistance and was like, look, you got to join our side. It's for the best. And she's like, fuck you, fuck vampires, and starts feeding on herself and starts devolving into this monstrous thing. And he realizes, like, I can't ever have my daughter back. So the way they execute vampires is they have them all chained up by the neck and they're all just like hooked to a truck, and the truck just like rolls out into the daylight and they just burn as they're on chains. And so his daughter gets put to death. That was pretty cool, pretty brutal. So we have former vampires, Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe, going to kind of show, hey, look, we have a cure. And Ethan Hawke's brother is like, how dare you? You betrayed us, you motherfucker, and bites Ethan Hawke again. It's like, oh god, I just got cured, and now you're turning me back into a vampire. But oh, no. Once a vampire is cured, their blood is a cure. So anytime a vampire bites them, they turn into a human. So then now the brother character is like, oh my god, I'm a human. And then all the vampires around him look at him, they all dive him and rip him apart, and they drink his blood. And then now 5 guys turned human. And then these vampires attack them, and now 20 guys are human. So now the vampire virus is spreading again with the human virus.
We gotta kill 10 million people, so 100 million can survive.
You don't necessarily have to kill them. As long as they drink a little bit of it, they turn into it. And it's such a different take, because like in Blade, Deacon Frost is, we're the superior people and we're going to send a blood god and turn everybody into vampires. And like, yeah, but what are you going to do for blood? You're going to just drink pigs and sheep and stuff for the rest of your life? And there is a deleted scene where they show the blood banks, and I know they do it in Blade 3 as well. But he had like no plan in that movie. And I like that in this one, they didn't have a plan either, because it just spread so quickly that they couldn't even plan for it. Very different than most vampire movies. A lot of action heavy stuff. It's a great watch.
I mean, from what you described, I like the thought process behind a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, that seems real cool. Sunlight is a cure is a great take. I mean, all that sounds pretty awesome. Yeah. I can see why it like went under the radar, because I think that movie came out in 2007.
Something like that.
And it's not like Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe are really bringing the teens in.
And Twilight was after that, right? That wasn't that 2000.
Twilight, I think, was 2008.
So this hit before the like vampire renaissance happened.
Let me just double check. I think it might be 2009.
But it came out before, that's for sure.
Daybreakers is 2009. I'm sorry.
Oh, so then.
And then Twilight was 2008.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 30 Days of Night, 2007.
We're not talking about 30 Days.
I know. 2009 was Daybreakers, and where the fuck
Twilight had to have been 2008.
Twilight was 2008, yep.
Huh.
So it was Twilight, then this.
Oh, interesting. Oh my god. Well, everything I said was a full lying bullshit.
Yeah, you would think that all these tweens would go like, ooh, Twilight was pretty hot. Let me see what this other vampire thing is. And they're like, nah, if it doesn't have Bella and Edward in it, I don't care.
And also the name Daybreakers, you don't necessarily know what that is.
Yeah.
Just from the title. But oh well, slip through the cracks. Not everything could be vampires suck. I saw that movie in theaters.
Me too.
You know what? It's kind of funny talking about...
Did we see it together?
No, I was living in Vegas at the time.
Oh, okay.
I was talking to this girl who looked like Rumor Willis, but like a redhead hot Rumor Willis. We met at CinemaCon. You know CinemaCon, right?
Yeah. CinemaCon.
And we were like just greeters at a door together, and we hit it off. She worked at a different theater across town on Vegas, and so we would meet and go see things. And we went and saw something, and then we're just hanging out in my car, and like, you gotta see Scott Pilgrim. And she's like, no, that looks stupid. Like, I'm telling you, Scott Pilgrim will change your life. It is the best freaking thing. I'm like, well, it's not playing at my theater. I'm like, well, it's playing at mine. It starts in 45 minutes. Well, it takes 40 to get there. I'm like, we can make it. Come on, just let's floor it and let's do it. But there was traffic, and we were like super late, and I didn't want her to not miss just even the earliest bits of it. And we're like, fine, we'll see Vampire Sucks, because that's the movie she wanted to see. And it was just like she's cracking up through the whole thing. And just like, oh my God, this is so bad. And I like parodies, but you can't just do a reference for reference sake.
Yeah. I don't remember anything in that movie other than the main girl's impression of Kristen Stewart.
Is very good.
And it's a very good impression. Like, she's great in that film.
Yeah.
It's just everything else about it is bad.
Because it's just like, what's a vampire thing? Oh, remember this scene? How does it work in? It doesn't matter. Just put it in and add a fart sound.
And that's how I made $100 million.
Yeah, those two, they suck. So that's my top 10. I want to give some runners up. Interview with the Vampire. Check it out if you like aristocratic vampires
who date
little girls.
8-year-olds.
Yeah.
I can't remember how old she is in that movie, but
pretty young.
Gross.
But that is weird to think back. And it's like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Antonio Banderas and Kirsten Dunst
all had full frontal scenes together.
They all touched dicks, including Kirsten Dunst.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Near Dark is a really good one. It's more of like a rough and tumble cowboy biker sort of vibe, and it's like a group of vampires that just like they travel around in a van with everything's like blacked out except for like a little circle that he looks out the windshield from, and he's all like has a motorcycle mask and like covering up like with blankets so they can drive during the day, and it all takes place in the desert, and there's like an 8-year-old boy who's actually like 100 years old in real life, and he's trying to convince this other little girl to come with him, because it's like, well, at least I'll have another little person, a child with me who can grow up with me, and because I'm so sick of being a kid and can understand my plight, and so he's gonna just like kidnap this girl and force her into the same torment that he has to go through.
Let me ask you, would you rather be a 10-year-old vampire forever or an 80-year-old vampire forever?
10-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially if I'm like fast and strong and I could do all these crazy vampire things, I don't care if I'm 10. I'm getting away from whatever situation being 10 could be harmful. Whereas like 8, well, no. 80, yeah, I don't, because I would assume a vampire at 80 doesn't hurt. They can move around and still do all the things. They just are stuck at 80.
They just look old, but they have all the same abilities.
But it's like, you want to be a sexy young vampire, right? But I guess you can't be a sexy 10-year-old. You could be a sexy 80-year-old.
Yeah, bite me between like 18 and 35, sure.
Yeah.
40 maybe, but 50 or above, just stake me.
Yeah.
What's the point?
So yeah, Near Dark is pretty fun, and one I really recommend, and it would have made my list if it was a more clear-cut vampire story. It's called Savage Land. It is a story of a small town on the border of Mexico that it only has like 53 people living in this town, but they're all slaughtered in all like really terrible ways, like chunks bitten out of them and just all around town. And there's only one survivor, and he was found walking down the road covered in blood. A truck driver picked him up and took him to the hospital. They said he was guilty of all this, even though there's tons of evidence to show like there's no way he could physically be in all these areas killing all these people at the same time. But he is found guilty, he is put to death, and then the driver discovers like he had a roll of film with him, and as this thing that happened that night, he was out taking pictures, and it could be zombies, I think it's vampires, but like a herd of vampires just kind of roll through this town and just like eat everybody and fuck them all up, and he's taking pictures of all of it the whole time, and the pictures they show are crazy spooky and really interesting, and it's this fake documentary of what really happened, and this innocent man was put to death, or really was he really innocent? How could he survive if everybody else died? And it's just really, really well done, except for the acting. Not everyone's convincing, because a lot of them are just like, I'm just the racist redneck sheriff, and of course this Mexican guy did it, It's very on the nose at times, but it's a very good movie, and I think it's on Prime for free. If you want a good mockumentary, Savage Land. And there was 2 movies I didn't get a chance to see before I made my list. Byzantium and Only Lovers Left Alive. And Only Lovers Left Alive is like Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton as vampires, like, who've been in love for years and stuff. And like, man, if 2 people are vampires, it's Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton. But like...
Tilda Swinton for sure.
Oh, for sure. Like, just androgynous, sexy people.
You know, I know some... I mean, I don't know if anyone actually really had a problem with Tilda Swinton being the ancient one in the Marvel movies. But, like, if anyone on this planet is an ancient one, it's probably Tilda Swinton. Like,
probably.
I could buy it.
So that's my list of best vampire movies. I didn't make a worst because it's like, everything else.
Let's stay positive on the podcast.
Yeah, let's stay positive.
It's not a movie, and no spoilers, but just as like on par with this kind of stuff. If you guys haven't seen it, watch Midnight Mass on Netflix.
Yes, Midnight Mass is good, but I didn't include any TV shows in this. Just movies. Do you have a top 10 list that you would want either one of us to do? Like, what's your favorite sci-fi movies, or deaths in horror movies, or best relationships, funniest characters? You know, is there something you would like us to compile a list on, maybe either together or separately? Hit us up at WRPL podcast on Twitter or WRPLpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Halloween. I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Goodbye.